When starting a story about the unusual and surprising, Egypt immediately comes to mind. There are things found there that are still difficult to imagine today. These are the most surprising discoveries made in Egypt in recent times. Not only chests or artifacts can be of great value to humanity. For example, archaeologists have also found a very unusual ancient tunnel, which is believed to lead to the yet-to-be-discovered tomb of the famous Queen Cleopatra. It was over 1,300 meters long. According to scientists, the design of the tunnel is similar to the Greek tunnel of Jubilinus. Imagine how terrifying and exciting it is to descend into a newly discovered tunnel. You can go crazy. And now, let's take a look at what researchers from Spain have discovered. They managed to reveal the oldest tomb in Egypt oriented towards the winter solstice. It is located in the necropolis of Covet el Hawa, and its entrance was precisely oriented towards the rising sun. The sun's rays cast their light on the place intended to house a statue of Elephantia, the ruler of the city, who lived at the end of the 12th dynasty, around 1830 BC. Most likely the governor to whom the tomb belonged was named Hekaiban. Thus, the arrangement of the tomb reflected ideas of rebirth. The winter solstice celebration symbolized the victory of the sunlight over darkness, making it an important symbol associated with the resurrection of the deceased ruler in the afterlife. King of ancient rulers and other historical figures. Let's remember Nefertiti. This lady supported her husband's reforms and, according to some Egyptologists, even initiated them. Her bust was found during excavations carried out in 1912 in the ancient Egyptian city of Akhetaten, the capital founded by Akhenaten around 1350 BC. After the pharaoh's death, the city was deserted, and Thebes regained its capital status. For an object over 3,000 years old, Nefertiti's sculptural portrait is extraordinarily well preserved. It has lost the uraeus, which apparently was on the queen's forehead, and the ears and headdress are damaged, but that's all the imperfections. It has the same layer of paint remaining in its original state to this day. Personally, I wonder why the statue of Nefertiti doesn't have a broken nose. Surely, if you're interested in ancient art, you may have noticed that most statues have broken noses. But why does this happen? Well, there are many theories, but the most popular one is that images, once a deity has entered them, have power that can be awakened through certain rituals, or it can be deactivated by deliberately damaging it, such as breaking the statue's nose. Not long ago, in 2020, Egyptian scientists discovered something new and unexplained. They found coffins that were different from all the others in their colorful appearance. Each one was painted a different color with a unique design. It is believed that these burials are 2,500 years old. These people might have been a particular tribe wanting to portray their individuality, which is why they used such unusual coffins. If we don't stray too far from this topic, there's another interesting discovery. Egyptian scientists have announced the discovery of hundreds of ancient coffins and 4 golden statues in the vast necropolis of Saqqara, located 30 kilometers south of Cairo. Some of the tombs contained mummies, inside one of which was even shown to the gathered public during the inaugural presentation. The next story will be about Tutankhamun, known to everyone. In 1922, Howard Carter's team discovered ancient musical pipes in his tomb. It was found that these were the oldest musical instruments of their kind to have survived to our days. One of the pipes was made of wood and silver, and the other of copper and bronze. A series of mystical events have been associated with these musical instruments in modern times. These images show the golden mummy discovered in Egypt's largest cemetery in 1966. There were over 250 mummies found, most of them belonging to the aristocracy who lived in the Bahari Oasis during the Greco-Roman period. That's probably why they were made of gold. The crocodile is a symbol of Sobek, the god of water responsible for the Nile floods, as well as for warding off dark forces and protecting humans and animals. It's not surprising that the Egyptians also mummified crocodiles. The Khobet al-Hawa crocodile tomb is unique because it's the first time that only animal mummies have been found in a burial chamber. Normally, mummified animals and birds were part of the funerary inventory of some important priests. And here's something smaller but no less interesting. These are called ushabti, small funerary figurines found in almost every burial, including those of the poorest classes. These miniature sculptures representing humans were not created by chance. They were unearthed from the darkness of the tomb. The Egyptians believed that after death, a person became a subject of Osiris if they had obeyed the pharaoh on earth. They now had to assume labor obligations in favor of the new sovereign. Of course, nobody liked this. So the Egyptians began to believe that if they placed a small figurine in the coffin, this fate would pass over the poor individual and set them free. It was a ritual figure that, along with all the other riches, was placed in a tomb and served as a message and gift to the god Osiris. Thousands of years later, the statue is once again in public view, along with other exhibited objects. It has taken its place on a museum shelf after centuries of confinement in a sand tomb. What do you think about this? Did the cameras capture it in motion? Are the statues alive? Or perhaps someone has played a prank on us after all? Share your opinion in the comments. The following images show a 4,500-year-old wooden statue of copper, an ancient Egyptian scribe and priest who lived between the end of the 4th and the beginning of the 5th dynasty. This beauty was discovered in 1860 in a necropolis in Saqqara, north of the stepped pyramid of Djoser. The most impressive thing about this sculpture is the level of realism with which it is executed. Now, for some less fun and straightforward news, archaeologists have discovered a 16-meter-long papyrus containing passages from the Book of the Dead in Egypt. The document, over 2,000 years old, was found in a tomb south of the stepped pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara. According to an official statement, conservation work has concluded and the text of the papyrus is being translated. And here's something older from our beloved Egypt, only this time it's a board game. Very interesting and unusual, it's called Senet and is the embodiment of the inner world and mentality of the ancients. Its rules were quite simple. The field for playing Senet is an elongated board with 30 squares. Each player has pieces of different shapes, usually cones and cylinders. Basically, everything is similar to backgammon. You throw dice that show the number of moves, and you move your pieces, trying to reach the end before your opponent. Except that instead of dice, flattened sticks were used, whose different faces had different point values. The main nuance was that the hardest part of Seneti, like the journey of the soul to the afterlife, was the final steps. Several of the cells at the bottom were marked with various hieroglyphs, which seemed to signify dangers and temptations on the way to Osiris's judgment. Ramses II was a famous pharaoh whose search for a tomb was long and difficult. After his death, he was buried in his own tomb, but it was looted. Therefore, priests had to move his mummy first to his father's tomb and then transport it all over the world. Finally, the stash was found by looters and ended up in the hands of the state. In 1881, scientists found the mummy of Ramses II, and thanks to it, experts have been able to recreate his appearance. It turns out that by Egyptian standards, the powerful pharaoh was a very handsome man. But Egypt is not only willing to surprise its guests with excavations. For example, it will pleasantly surprise you with its desert, but not the usual one, but the White Desert. The White Desert is a small area in the eastern Sahara known for its numerous limestone formations and simply fantastic landscapes. In particular, the Black Desert is also nearby, located 134 kilometers north of the White Desert. It is the exact opposite of it. It consists of sand dunes covered with black volcanic material. Now I'll show you a mummy found in an Egyptian oasis, but it's different from the others. This sarcophagus has its own burial principle, as well as its own materials with which the body was sprinkled. Scientists have not yet unraveled the mystery, but the fact that we are learning something new is reassuring. Do you remember that we talked about Ramses II today? Well, now I'll show you his main statue, which raises many questions. If you look closely at the represented face of Ramses II, you can tell that it is symmetrical, all that, but the human eye cannot see that it is perfectly symmetrical right down to the millimeter. How could the ancients do something like this? But that's not even the best part. The entire statue is made of granite. Yes, the same rock that is stronger than iron. It turns out that 3,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, the pharaoh's face was carved into granite with a primitive chisel and with perfect symmetry. Isn't that incredible? There is very little information available about Seraphim, the necropolis of Saqqara in Upper Egypt. Archaeologists don't seem to be interested, probably because there is an underground gallery that doesn't fit their established theories about the dynastic history of Egypt, which cannot be older than 3,000 years before Christ in any way. Although some researchers believe that the main gallery with its granite coffins is over 12,500 years old. In fact, it dates back to the time of the Atlanteans. The tomb of Osiris in Egypt was until recently a kind of local myth. However, inscriptions found by archaeologists in a necropolis on the western bank of the Nile became a full-fledged landmark. The tomb of Osiris turned out to be a standard structure, a vestibule connected to several underground chambers equipped with various traps for treasure seekers and tomb robbers. The tomb bears a strong resemblance to Osirian, the sanctuary of the god of rebirth, built in Abydos, one of the oldest cities in Egypt. Like Osirian, the tomb has, at its center, a sculpture of the main character of the tomb. The deity sits atop a 9-meter-high staircase. The Great Sphinx is the oldest monument on Earth. It's no wonder that everyone knows it. But even the brightest minds of scientists don't know is why and when the Sphinx's nose was broken. When archaeologists could better examine the Great Sphinx and study it properly, they found evidence that the statue's nose had been deliberately mutilated. The reason, however, remains the greatest mystery of all time. Who do you think did it and why? Feel free to share your own theory in the comments. In December of 1932, Patrick Clayton, a topographer from the Egyptian Geological Survey, was driving through the dunes of the Great Sand Sea near the Sod Plateau in Egypt when he heard a crunch under his wheels. When he investigated the cause of the sound, he found crystals, or rather large pieces of crystal in the sand. The discovery caught the attention of geologists worldwide and began one of the greatest scientific mysteries of today. What phenomenon could raise the temperature of desert sand to at least 3,300 degrees Fahrenheit and turn it into glass, huge sheets of solid yellow-greenish color, and such a round shape? No one has discovered it to the end either. The great library of Alexandria survived for almost 1,000 years. Over 700,000 volumes accumulated throughout its history. Some of them contained the oldest secrets of past civilizations. Over the last centuries, the library suffered continuous looting, theft, and destruction of manuscripts. Julius Caesar put an end to the existence of this great collection of human knowledge during the Civil War of 48 BC. He accidentally burned it down. I wonder how much important and useful information was stored there. Perhaps it could unveil the mysteries to modern people and tell them how the pyramids were really built, if there are extraterrestrials and such things. What do you think? Now I will show you what scientists at the University of Egypt investigated in 2017. They came across a wooden prosthetic big toe. The discovery, about 3,000 years old, was found in a female tomb in the necropolis of Sheikh Abd el-Korna near Luxor. It is most likely the oldest prosthesis in the history of humanity. The Valley of the Golden Mummies is located in the Bahariya Oasis and is regularly visited during excursions in Egypt, about 420 kilometers from Cairo. This funerary catacomb with thousands of golden mummies was used throughout the Greco-Roman period in Egypt. The findings suggest it was reserved for individuals from the middle and upper classes of society. It was discovered by accident when a donkey-drawn cart got stuck in an opening leading to this massive underground funerary complex, where apart from walls can you find ancient drawings, letters, or seals. That's right, exclusively on papyrus. However, there's also something among ordinary paper that is considered a true treasure of immeasurable value that can speak to people about UFOs. I'm talking about the Tully Papyrus. It's not clear exactly how this papyrus was found, but its translation reported that it was created during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III. That is, the document itself dates back to around 1480 BC. The document spoke of a mysterious phenomenon in the past. Ufologists have seen it as evidence of UFO sightings and extraterrestrials. The text stated that in the 22nd year, a huge ball of fire appeared in the sky, making no noise. It extended to a length of 46 meters and flew over the palace. On the 4th of November 1922, archaeologists discovered the previously unknown tomb of Tutankhamun, successively opening sealed doors and passing through the debris left by looters. The researchers penetrated deeper and deeper through narrow corridors until they reached the burial chamber. It was entirely occupied by a massive golden shrine over 5 meters tall. The innermost chamber contained a quartzite sarcophagus in which rested the golden coffin of Tutankhamun and a mummy with a gold mask forged onto the face. It was a beautiful portrait of the deceased pharaoh with expressive dark blue and obsidian eyes, wearing a dazzling collar of colored stones. The Rosetta Stone reproduces a fragment of an ancient Egyptian granodiorite stele on which is carved a sacred decree establishing the cult of the Egyptian king Ptolemy V Epiphanes, 13 years old. This inscription dates from 196 before Christ. The text is written in 3 scripts: ancient Greek script, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and demonic script. It was found in the coastal town of Rosetta during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign in 1799. And now I will tell you about a secret room that was found in the Great Pyramid of Giza a couple of years ago. Researchers were able to access the secret chamber after the sandy floor gave way during a visit to the pyramid. The 30-meter long and 2-meter high chamber was discovered using high-tech equipment. The researchers used highly sensitive radar to scan the pyramid for voids. The secret room contained several containers with scrolls. They didn't open the containers to avoid accidentally damaging the scrolls. This is the ancient papyrus found in Wadi al-Yarf. According to scholars, it was created during the reign of the second pharaoh of the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom of Egypt, Khufu, also known as Cheops. The papyrus describes the structure of the state, the daily life of pyramid builders, and how construction materials were transported from the port to Giza. Before you stands a monumental figure, 2 meters in height, seated on a throne, proudly upright, with a straight back and crossed hands on the lap. It is called the statue of the goddess Sekhmet. Despite damage to her face, the goddess makes a strong impression and appears to possess supernatural power. Not in vain, the museum staff tells incredible stories about the statue of Sekhmet. Occasionally, on a full moon, a red puddle appears on the goddess's granite lap, and by morning it dries, leaving only a barely perceptible trace. Scientifically, it is difficult to explain this phenomenon, but mystically, for over a century, archaeologists have been unearthing thousands of papyri from the sands of the ruins of the ancient Egyptian city of Oxyrhynchus. They are literally written on everything, from religious and dramatic writings to commercial documents, both legal and not so legal. A significant portion of the texts are Paleo-Christian manuscripts, gospels, hymns, prayers. Additionally, there are quite a few copies of ancient literary works. Some of them have not been preserved anywhere else. A tomb discovered in 1825 by the British Egyptologist James Burton was rediscovered. Archaeologists have given it the designation KV5. It is currently the largest known tomb in the Valley of the Kings. It seems that the pyramids are something unknown and mysterious in themselves. At least to this day, no one can explain exactly how they were built. However, scientists have decided to raise even more questions about the pyramids. According to them, the Pyramid of Khufu is a genuine energy concentrator. It is capable of dispersing, absorbing, and reflecting radio waves with a range of 200 to 600 meters. I don't know about you, but I'm becoming increasingly convinced that the Egyptians knew much more than we think. For example, not long ago, Scientists demonstrated that Tutankhamun's dagger was made of meteorite iron. And this is not the only example. Meteorite metal was used to create ceremonial tools and ornamental elements. The craftsmen were very skilled, and the metal was discovered long before the Iron Age arrived in Europe. Moreover, extraordinary stones were used whose origin is unknown. In the city of Alexandria, Egypt, a massive black granite sarcophagus was discovered during archaeological excavations at a depth of 5 meters. It had a rather unusual shape. The sarcophagus was very heavy, and its lid was carefully fitted and seated on some kind of mortar. As soon as the information reached the internet, ominous rumors swirled around the sarcophagus, and various versions circulated about what might be inside. Residents seriously feared plague, viruses, and even ancestral curses. Once opened, the air around it filled with something horrible and repugnant. There was no way to work, and the sarcophagus was left open for an hour to let the smell disperse a bit. It was almost half filled with a reddish-brown sludge. Gradually, the liquid was removed, and the bones at the bottom were reached. So far, no scientist has been able to determine what fluid it was, how it got there, or what it could have been used for.